The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Welcome to another episode of the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author. And for the next couple of episodes, we are going to be in Port Orange, Florida. If you've never heard of Port Orange, Florida, you've heard of their slightly more famous neighbor to the north, Daytona Beach. And what's interesting about Port Orange is most of it is on the land side, but if you go over the Dunlawton Bridge, there's a tiny, tiny little piece of Port Orange that's on that barrier island, almost completely surrounded by the city of Daytona Beach Shores. And north of Daytona Beach Shores is Daytona Beach itself, the band shell and the main street where all of Oktoberfest is. You pretty much know that portion of Daytona Beach, but below that is Daytona Beach Shores, and below that is a tiny little piece of Port Orange. And what's funny about that is when you get off the Dunlawton Bridge, if you take an immediate U-turn to your left, you pass by an awesome breakfast place, awesome ice cream parlor, and Dunes Brewing. And that is who we are going to be speaking to today. If you have never seen the most adorably nautical tap room that Dunes Brewing has, you do owe it to yourself to jump on their social media to take a look, because it is fantastic. They've been open since 2021. So here in 2024, this will be their third year, obviously. And in that time, they have taken a big focus on building their community relations and using their tap room and their amazing lineup of beers to really become a part of not only Port Orange itself, but Volusia County as a whole. It was opened up by a couple of friends, each of which has their own businesses in that area, which is kind of funny because they are across the street from one business. They're right next door to another business. And actually the building that they're in has a third business, all of which are slightly different. And I'm not going to talk about it too much because we will be here with co-founder Michael Benedict, who will give us the rundown of everybody. One of the things that he owns is Benedict Marketing, which obviously will do the marketing for Dunes Brewing. And from Benedict Marketing, we also spoke to Sasha Staton. She was actually the person who was gracious enough to give us this interview and set everything up, which we definitely cannot thank them enough for. So there's a lot to get through. Let's go ahead and jump right into part one of our interview with Dunes Brewing, kind of understanding Volusia County and the creation of Dunes with co-founder Michael Benedict and their advertising manager, Sasha Staton. Enjoy. And before we start talking about beer, before we start talking about business, I kind of want to talk about the area, because before we got started, and since we have been here, the word down under has been big. And the word, I guess the term oceanside, canal side, those are just part of the parlance of this area. Can you kind of describe what those mean geographically and then what those mean culturally to give us sort of a sense of not just who you are, but where you are?
Sure. And that is a big reason why we picked where we are. So the Down Under district is what it's commonly referred to. At least the city of Port Orange loves us to refer to that. And we all believe it. And it really stems from currently the restaurant here, which is the Down Under, or we call it Down Under. And it's a great seafood restaurant on the water where people have been going to for decades. And it's a cold beer in a pitcher, boiled shrimp, fresh fish sandwich right there. And there used to be two of them back to back. And there's another one coming. They're building another one here soon. So that's going to be real exciting. But that history stems from the fact that this is one of, and you'll have to check me on the stat. So it's one of, I think, 7 working marinas in the state of Florida left that actually go out and fish our local waters and bring back seafood that's distributed all over the country, and maybe internationally, but I know all over the country. It's called Two Jerk Seafood is the name of it now, and it's been there for, plus 80 years probably. Multiple generational families. They run their own boats, local shrimpers, local deep sea fishing, pretty much anything you ever want. If it's local and it's caught off our waters and you want fresh fish, that's where everybody goes in town. So it's a great thing. And so I think that stems from that down under. That's why restaurants popped up. And so the reason we wanted the brewery was because here specifically was it's beachside. We're big time beach people. This is Daytona Beach area. It's all about the beach, right?
Well, but I would say that Daytona Beach area, when you say the words Daytona Beach, there's a very specific and I would say very different image that comes into the minds of people. And that image of both spring break and Biketoberfest, which is coming up right before we record
right next weekend. Yeah.
Best of luck with that. But when it comes to, it seems that Port Orange is very different. It almost feels like Daytona Beach is more the tourist side where they kind of overgo that beachy experience, whereas Port Orange, and especially down under where we are right now, is more what the locals want.
Sure. So that's a very good astute look at it from an outsider's standpoint. Yeah, they are very separate, and for a lot of reasons they are. I mean, this is considered Port Orange's downtown, and so what you have here, except for the city center, which is they do a lot of local events there. This is truly where most of Port Orange people like to go, and that's going to be continued across the bridge. So directly across is a massive development area that's going to probably be this great. It's going to be a great connector. I mean, it's going to be restaurants, entertainment, living, and retail. It's going to be phenomenal. And so, the restaurants kind of paved the way under here for that whole, and at Catfish. I don't want to be remiss in it. That has been a landmark for a very long. I'm going there this Sunday actually with our kids because it's awesome. Blue Jeans brunch, baby. It's awesome. It's so much fun.
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah. It's pretty great. If you're in town still, you definitely 9:00, it opens, hit it up. It's fun. So we are literally all 4 of us could take a rock and hit Daytona Beach. It is across that fence right there. So over that fence is where Daytona Beach Shores starts.
Okay.
And so this is a unique cutout of Port Orange. So Port Orange across the mainland, it goes for quite a big, probably 25 square miles, right? But there's maybe 10 addresses that are Port Orange under the bridge here. And so
interesting, in the city of Daytona Beach Shores never tried to make a play for this area.
Oh, I'm sure that if you depending on what city of municipality you talk to, I'm sure Port Orange loves us and they love that we're here and we love being in Port Orange. We do consider ourselves that inside that greater Daytona Beach area. I mean, we are not in Daytona Beach and there are some great breweries in Daytona Beach, but we feel like we're beachside. We always say Port Orange. Everything you look at, I'll say Dunes Brewing, Port Orange, Florida. It always will. But we do feel like we're Daytona Beach Shores, Wilbur by the Sea, and Ponce Inlet's brewery because technically they're here. And it's fantastic, but that's just the beach side.
I guess is not the first business that the founders had created. So it seems like it sort of combined from not only the marketing firm, but also, of all things, the construction company that's sort of next, or I guess across the street. Or so we talked about the advertising agency, and then I was also taking a look, not a construction company, but I guess a pump. What is the?
So one of the partners, Chris Thompson. Yeah. So it all started with 3 guys who went to college together, and Chris and I, we went to middle school together. But so Chris Thompson's one of the
partners. Still talking to each other.
Oh yeah, we're best friends. We can joke about literally anything, and there are no hard feelings ever. But Chris Thompson, one of the partners, owns Thompson Pump, which is a 50-plus-year-old dewatering bypass pump company that they help pump out water out of the World Trade Center when it got bombed. Planes ran into it. So, yeah, so they're a massive global industrial pump company, and they have some awesome histories. Like they raised the Hunley with their pumps. They pumped out the water to pull up the HL Hunley out of Charleston, I think is where area. They've moved lighthouses. I mean, their pumps have been in some of the most great historical things in the U.S., and it's pretty cool. So you get to hear a lot of cool stories. But yeah, Chris, Bobby, and Bobby's the other partner. Bobby also works at Thompson Pump. We just like drinking beer. That's how this all happened. Always a silly story with beer.
But I would say that you've got the restaurant that you own as well, which serves beer, I would assume.
We do, yeah. Not Dunes Brewing, because there's a 3-tier system.
Oh, we will talk about that later. Because you've serving beer, purchasing and serving beer, and making beer are two very different things.
Completely, yeah.
And obviously, both of those sorts of businesses are very different from running an advertising agency and running a pump construction company.
Yep.
What did you, I guess, are there things that you were amazed that you found yourself in when it came time to create Dunes Brewing? Things that you had never seen before in any of these other businesses?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself. Chris, this is a manufacturing facility in all intents and purposes.
Yeah, absolutely.
We make alcohol, which is a drug, which is highly regulated by the U.S. government, federally and city and state. It all is for good reason, right? I mean, it's an addictive degree drug to it, so it should be regulated. So manufacturing anything has its own challenges. I mean, so when we embarked on this, we thought we knew something. We did not know anything. I mean, which has been a great lesson in life. I mean, we've learned a tremendous amount, not just about making beer, but, you know, building a brand, building a manufacturing facility, following the guidelines issued by the federal government and the state government and locally as well. It's been a challenge, but I see why people do it. I mean, it's when a beer goes through the process, and we'll walk back there if you want to see everything. And I'm sure you've seen plenty, but to us, that grain that turns into something in your glass that is as fresh as you can get, right? So we are a true tank to glass brewery. There is no middle grounds. It is made and pumped out into your glass, and it's as fresh as it gets. There's no pasteurization, which also has great benefits from nationally distributed beers. I love a lot of them, but that quality of that grain and that freshness of that beer, and you've had these plenty of times, there's just something special about that, and you can't take that away. So no matter what pain of building a business, and I'm especially proud, Sasha might have mentioned this to you, what we have right now on tap is our Oktoberfest style beers, and we have 4 classic German style beers on tap right now.
I would assume,
and that makes us super happy.
Nice. Do you have a Märzen and a Fest beer?
Yes, we do. Yep. Yeah, we do.
All right.
And typically because our brewmaster, who's phenomenal, Jeremy Shaw, who's phenomenal. When we opened this brewery and we all met and we talked for probably over a year before we opened, or before we even got to brew beers, we all knew what we wanted to do, and that was to make traditional, great Oktoberfest beers. It's all our favorites.
Really?
But Jeremy, to his credit, challenged us on that and said, if you're going to do that, you've got to have a fest beer. And we're like, okay, whatever, just make the Märzen, just make that beautiful beer. And I would argue, he probably loved me saying this, that is probably our best beer on tap right now. And maybe one of our best beers we've had is the fest beer this year is, I'd say, phenomenal. I mean, it's excellent.
I love
it. Blows you away.
I love both of those styles. Where did you find Jeremy? Because I know that he was doing some brewing part-time, but really you kind of came to him from the pump company, kind of.
Yeah. In a roundabout way. Yeah. So this is great. We actually tried to hire someone else because we didn't know Jeremy at the time. And when we talked about the brewery and what we wanted to do, he told us, I'd love to do this, but you really probably need to talk to Jeremy Shaw. He's probably the better man for this job. And so you have someone that you're trying to hire literally tell you, that's great, I'd love the job, but you need to talk to this guy. And then once we did, it was like, yep, this is it. And hopefully I feel Jeremy feels the same way. I mean, the conversations, the mentality, the direction, how we all approach beer, because you got to be on the same step, right? You can't have a divide of where you want to be because it is a team effort. If Jeremy wanted to make these amazing beers, but we all hated them, that wouldn't work. And granted, we're not going to always agree, but the fact that we know how to communicate to each other when we don't agree and we don't want something, I mean, he has complete freedom. So we don't mandate. I mean, we do a little bit, and that's 3 specific beers that we want on tap. But I'll tell you, we don't always have them on tap, and that's because sometimes you can't get the right grains, or it's not the right time, or he just doesn't feel comfortable making that beer. And to give him that freedom, I believe that that's why this partnership works extremely well, that he knows he's challenged with brewing the best beer. And if that means we're going to have what we want on tap, that might work out. But what he's trying to bring is what's seasonally correct, what is the right grains that he can get, and for the right feeling and right beer. And I'd say 9.5 times out of 10, he's dead money on that. It is just perfect.
So he's allowed to say no, basically. Because I've had some breweries where the brewer was somebody who is not the owner, and the brewer has been sort of unhappy because they want to brew styles XYZ, and then the owner comes in and says, add fruit and lactose to everything.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that
do
happens.
This and do that and do something else.
But it's got to be just as much his brewery. So you asked earlier, maybe on air or not, about what we've learned from our other businesses, and to working in an advertising agency, which is a complete creative field, but it's also built on collaboration. I learned that if I work with a lot of creative individuals, I'm probably the least creative person at the company. But when you work with a lot of creative people, if you tell them what you want and tell them how to do their job, you're going to get absolutely you're going to get crap out of it. But when you let them, who are the creative individuals, who know where the direction should be based on the input, then you got to follow that. And so that's helped me a lot with Jeremy, because he is truly he's an artist, right? I mean, the true brewmasters that do phenomenal work, and there's a lot of them just in the state. There's a lot of them in this area. When you let them go, they make the best beer. And so if I try to tell him what to do, we would not have the beer that we have, because it'd be like, okay, yeah, I can mix whatever recipe you want together, and sure, we'll be happy. But when he has that freedom, and I think we get, if you look up any review, I think you'll see that time and time again, that the beer is one of the superstars here at the brewery. And that's because we let him do his job.
Gotcha.
Like, let him do what he loves, and he knocks it out of the park.
Gotcha. One of the undercurrents that I'm hearing from you as we've been talking is you seem to be a local. This is just the place where you want to be. And I had a question before we had gotten started talking as to whether the location that we're sitting in right now was just because, hey, my restaurant's there, my business is there, their business is over there, this is just sort of convenient, or if it really was a love for Port Orange, if it really was a love for coastal Volusia County, if it really was a love for Down Under. It kind of seems like that's more what won.
Yeah, there's truly a lot of that. But to be fair, when we were building the restaurant next door, this property, which I had a chance to buy probably 15, 20 years ago, and I didn't. I regret it ever since. When we were building our restaurant, this came available, and I was like, hell nah. We ain't going to let we're building this brand new, awesome restaurant. We didn't want someone to buy this building and put a awesome restaurant in and compete with us from day one. And we love this area. So when we had the opportunity, we saw that. I mean, we called the number immediately, walked over here, sat down with the owner, made an offer literally that day, because when we walked in, and it does not look like it does today, but this is what we envisioned it would look like. So we had this idea that we're going to bring, when we walked in, we're like, oh yeah, this is a brewery. This is 100% a brewery. We're building a brewery here. We've always wanted to do a brewery. And it was not easy, but I'm so happy looking around at how this came to life. And it came to life because we truly do love this area. And you can see it in the art and the design. There's a lot of local artists represented here. There's a lot of history. My wife's dad is right there in the middle of that picture. And that is a Daytona Beach from probably 60 years ago. And so this area is big to our families. We love it here. We both have all the partners we were born in this area. We grew up in this area. We went off to college, came back to this area. We want this brewery, and we want it to be kind of that place that everybody in this area can hang out and call their own. And I actually think a lot of breweries in this area feel that way too, because we're very proud of, and probably all over the state, honestly. I mean, you have a lot of people that put their passion into what they do. And I mean, most times you see it, right? It's very evident. And that to us is what you see here is our passion for the area, our passion for beer, and we want it to be somewhere like this. Like, you have this is a very family room style, right? You look around, it's a coastal casual. You feel welcome when you walk in here immediately, and we hear that all the time. So we're happy what we thought would be the case is what people are responding with. And because we want people to come in and hang out. It's not while it is a manufacturing facility, we did not want it to be industrial. We did not want you to feel cold. That steel, that industrial beer package, right, that you see sometimes. And that's no knock on some people. They are 100. When you walk in those places, they're 100% focused on the beer. and the beer's probably going to be excellent, right? We wanted to try to represent. We knew how good Jeremy was, so we wanted to hopefully give an equally great place for people to enjoy that great beer and feel comfortable and feel welcome. That's why we have video games for kids, and they're free, because we don't want. I mean, I have kids. Sasha has kids. We all been out and we've all been asked, "Hey, give me $10, give me $10, give me." And as a parent, and you have a child, as a parent, that starts to like, I don't want to go back there again, right? And it makes the evening real expensive. So that was purpose driven. As a parent, I did not want to have that. I wanted to have them be able to play and do. And look, she's been playing on the game since we got here, right? She's doing her own little game. She's made a game up out of the games, which is even great.
Just don't break it.
Yeah,
Daddy can't afford to replace it.
Hopefully, she feels comfortable here. Right? Because it's just as much, I mean, not that you build a brewery for kids ever, right? But you build a brewery where kids and families feel comfortable. And it's not about, this isn't built to come in and get drunk and be stupid, right? It's come, hang out with friends and family, have a beer or two. And we see people, they don't sit there and pound them, but you know what they do? They sit and have a beer or two, they get dinner. You can bring whatever food you want in here, and they have fun, and kids are running around and laughing, and they feel comfortable too. And to us, that's a really big deal.
And you're absolutely correct. And there's so many places where, she has been welcomed before we get welcomed, and we're the ones drinking the beer. But if you can build a place where the kids are welcome, where the families are welcome, that entices me not only to come, but to also stay. That also sort of builds a sense of community. Not just here, the community coming here, but you also being a part of the community. So how did you try to incorporate Dunes Brewing into the community municipally of Port Orange? You were business people here before, so you already had your existing locations. Did you try to continue that sort of municipal, that cultural, that city connection when you opened Dunes?
Absolutely. That's a critical component of, being a good resident, being a good community partner is you have your customers, right? That's a lifeblood of any business, but you have your employees, also a huge part. A lot of them live here, but you also have to be a good community partner, and you have to be a part of the city, which obviously sets the rules and guidance, and you want to follow that, right? I mean, we're a brewery, we make beer, right? You're already going to be looked upon as potentially a nuisance, and we take that very responsibly. Like, we don't want ever to have an issue here. That's why we close early. We don't stay up late, open late. We follow the guidelines of everybody. Every restaurant under here closes by 10 o'clock at the latest on any given night. We never stay late. Could we? Absolutely. We've had to kick out probably 50 people at 10 o'clock and say, hey, look, you got to go somewhere else, because this area, we don't want that down here. And those things look, there's great, actually right across the street is where we tell people to go. Yaya's, awesome late night bar. Great people, karaoke, killer, right? A lot of fun. And we just ask them to go over there. And it's a great, and you move on, right? Like, you're moving on to a different spot because we don't want that here, because we believe that the city also likes that we all do that here. We all work together, and being a good city partner to me is critical. I serve on boards with the city. We host a lot of events here for the city to have, just this week, my partner was in here. We host annually the young leaders of South Daytona, Port Orange, and a kind of a talk about it's a leadership class that we talk about why this area is so important and why we chose to invest here, right? And so that's a big deal to us, and we're very proud that they allow us to host it, because that's a big deal to us. And we have every ownership always at those meetings. You have Dairy Bar right next to us, an institution in this area. If you go to the beach here and you don't stop at Dairy Bar, shame on you. I mean, it's like classic, great place.
We're going to Dairy Bar in a little bit, right?
Yeah, best chili dog in town, hands down. And you can't not get an ice cream cone there. It's killer. And we grew up doing that, and it's right here, and they're great partners, which is why we'll never have a food truck that has anything to do with ice cream come in here, because there's no way they're going to beat them anyways, and we don't want to do that. Dessert is there. That's our option, right? You don't like that, shame on you. I mean, That's not our problem, and it's a great place.
I guess, did that make it easier to work with the city when it came time to open, to zoning, to going through the laws? Because you were not the first brewery in Volusia County, obviously. Daytona Beach was here, Ormond was Beach, and even in Port Orange, Tomoka used to be here years ago. Did any of that make it easier, or was there still a lot of simply not knowing what brewery does, how does one beer, so on? Yeah,
that's very observant, by the way. We're not the first. We're not the only either. I mean, Persimmon Hollow, which is a fantastic brewery in downtown DeLand, has a couple satellite locations. They have one here in Port Orange, and they do a phenomenal job. And they don't do it like one big brewery and they ship the beer. You have a local brewmaster here. She's, I don't know if it's still the same lady. She was in here a couple months ago. She's awesome. And our brewmaster, her talk about ideas, what they're doing. It's we feel in this area, at least, we're very sharing. But the Port Orange, they have guidelines, right? You're a manufacturer. That's one thing. This is not your typical industrial park, right? You're under the bridge next to restaurants. So having a manufacturing facility in the middle of that. But what we do is offer the taproom side. And so that allows an expression of your product. This is made here. So if you're from Port Orange or this area, this area, you should be proud, if you're a beer drinker, that you have beer that's made here for you, based on what we see and feel is the right thing for this area. And so Port Orange was excellent allowing us to do that, but they had just updated their city mandate of what they wanted to attract to the area, and brewery was one of the top ones. So it came maybe at ideal timing, and the city has been nothing but amazing to work with. I mean, we've built a lot of other restaurants and stuff around East Central Florida. Hands down, City of Port Orange is the best work, and they all have their goods and bads. But City of Port Orange, and you got Penny and Tim in the development office, and you have a city commission and a mayor and a city manager that are all 100% supportive of growth. Now, they may not personally like some things, right? But collectively, they've all come together and been very supportive of not only our business, which we're very happy about, but business in general, and mixing it with what the residents want, right? So they didn't come up with that idea that, hey, these are the businesses we just feel is great. This is what the residents told them that they would like to see in a city. And so the city put that list together and went out and tried to attract those businesses. We happened to come in at the right time. That was one of the top things on the list. Look, right behind us is a residential neighborhood. We have to respect that very clearly, that we're manufacturing. It does get loud sometimes with the glycol machine and other machines, the compressors out there. So we do it at certain times. We don't brew it in the middle of the night. Obviously, that's silly. But we respect that we are somewhat in a neighborhood, because also if we do our job, those are our best customers, right? Even if they don't like beer, we still have a lot of people that come in here and don't drink beer, but come to hang out. We have a lady that comes in literally almost every day just to play the pinball machine, and she's one of our best customers. She doesn't always order beer, sometimes just a Sprite.
Okay.
And she feels so comfortable and loves it here. And we love her. It's like, hey, it's good to see you.
That's perfect.
And it's because we're for the community too.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned was the beer, that it was right for Port Orange. And I would love to talk about that for a little bit, because what is sort of the beer that really works in Port Orange and Volusia County? Like, you go up to Jacksonville, everybody's got a cream ale. You go over to Tampa specifically, it doesn't matter what beer you have, it's going to be hopped.
Oh, yeah.
You come down to South Florida, Miami-Dade is going to be king of the fruited sours, and that's how they're going to live. What is Volusia like in terms of beer styles, in terms of preferences?
Yeah, that's you have a huge NASCAR, Biketoberfest, Bike Week, beer drinking crowd here, right? Very, very notable what this area is. And spring break, big tourist area, right? So you're not going to have a lot of heavy, big beers, because that's just not who we attract in the area from a resident and from a guest visitor standpoint. So while we do have some of those once in a while, and it's more like right now Oktoberfest, but even our Oktoberfest, the Marzen, to me, a Schwarzbier, a Fest beer, and a Kolsch, you can really get dark with those quick. But we try to go for that clean feel. So no matter what the beer is, even if it's one of the darkest beers you've ever had, Jeremy has always approached it with that clean finish, right? So it's not that grainy, chewy bite of a beer sometimes, which I do love sometimes. We all do probably. If you love beer, you're going to like that one. You can almost eat. But Jeremy's been very clear that the palate in this area wants something clean and I wouldn't say simple because that's undermines
I hate to use the term, but beer flavored beer.
Beer flavored beer, yeah, yeah. I mean, you're not going to see as much
heavily
as
adjuncted imperial stout.
Yeah, yeah. So we do pressure him a lot to have a lighter beer because we really want that almost beach water type beer that's clean, simple, easy to drink. A few crushable beers on the beach, which is illegal by the way, so don't do that. But if you were, we want that on the boat then perhaps. But we do want that, and he's hesitated or resisted us for over 2 years now to make that beer because while that is probably would be a great selling beer, it's not really what you want here, right? You look around and you want that a little higher grade beer, a little classicer taste, got that beer flavored beer that you go, dang, that's a good beer. You can feel that. I hate to say homemadeness to it. But really
there's a handcrafted quality that a good brewery such as yourself has, where it doesn't feel mass produced, even though technically some of them are, some of them aren't, whatever. If you can get that sort of feeling that somebody I can see over there, but these ingredients I can see over there and that machine over there really is a difference in the quality.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is that beer you're having today will never be the same, right? We don't have a flavor board where, kudos to the big brewers that are going for that same flavor every year. That is probably way more difficult than what we do. Even as simple as like a Mick Ultra would be, it's got to taste like a Mick Ultra every year, every time the same, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have that. We're lucky. We have 7-barrel system, 200 and some gallon, right around 200. I don't know the exact number around of when we make that beer. That is how it's going to taste. And that's the last time you'll taste that beer. And now it was what we could do then. We have an excellent water source here. We don't pull anything outside of any random chemicals, but we're really trying to keep the pH balance of what we have here locally, which a lot of breweries do. A lot of breweries are very fortunate to have, especially in this county. We have a couple counties over where spring fed is a big deal. Mm-hmm. They make phenomenal beers over there. But all of our cities are renowned for how good the water quality is. And so you're doing enough to get the like fluoride and stuff like that out, obviously, the beer. While that may be good or bad for some, we have to take it out, right? Because it will affect the grains, and which means it affects the fermentation process, which affects the taste and flavor and alcohol, right? So there are certain things you have to strip out, but we keep it pretty much what the pH balance is coming in is what you're going to have in the water system. And that's a big deal to us.
Awesome. Do you notice that a lot of the people that are coming in, a lot of the regulars, a lot of the locals are starting to become more adventurous, or do they generally have other locations in the area? If I want something heavy in one direction, I'll go here. If I want something spicy in another direction, I'll go here. If I want something a little bit cleaner and more Reinheitsgebot, maybe I'll come to Dunes.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I have my favorites when I go around. I mean, so I always try every month to get to all the breweries, and I finally made it up to, in our neighboring county is Flagler. I think it's Coquina City. I have to check that. Or in Flagler County on Beachside. And it was fantastic. I mean, he had an Oktoberfest on, and I thought he did a fantastic. It was probably more of a fest beer style to what he told me, and I agreed with him. And it was fantastic, right? And so he has some of that cool Florida taste going in his, like the daddle pepper, which is synonymous.
I love daddle peppers.
It's so good. It's such a great flavor. And so and then one of my other favorite breweries in the little area here, it's in St. Johns County, which is 2 counties, is Bog Brewing.
It's funny. I was just about to mention Bog. The one time that I went there, it was a daddle pepper.
Yeah, they do a smoked daddle pepper beer. It is so absolutely money. Like what they do there, and their brewmaster is extremely talented, right? But so that's another example of someone taking a local product and knocking it out of the park. And so the guy in Flagler, I think it's Coquina City. I hope I'm right, because he's a really great guy. I just met him. Asked him a lot, showed me brewers or beer people. I'm not a brewer. He's like right away, hey, come here, check this out. And it's like awesome what he's done there and set it up. I mean, my mom and I stopped in there. We had lunch up there, and then I was like, hey, let's go check that brewery out. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. So I didn't expect to have some beers at noon on a Saturday.
Hey, it happens.
But we had a great time, and we watched a little football, had beers, and then she went on to church, and I had to get back for the kid. But it's so cool to stop in that that little area. And if you go like beachside, there's two breweries that I know of. World's Most Famous on Main Street. Really cool place. If you haven't been there, it's a really cool, very unique, right? You're right in the epicenter of Bike Week, right? So,
yeah.
And so he has other beers on tap outside of his own, because you have hundreds of thousands of people flooding that street, right? So you're serving a little different. There's a new brewery that's proposed to be built right across the street from him. So obviously people know that that's a good area for that. That's going to be cool if it happens. But if you go up the way into Ormond by the Sea, you got Beachside Brew Pub, and he's probably one of the longer, probably Ormond Brewing. And then Ormond was definitely the first in town, and they do a great, Justin and those guys do a great job there. If you go in there, you're going to feel like family, right? They just treat you that way. Gilbert runs the bar, a fantastic human being, right? So he's always, yeah. And they got 20 beers or more on tap, right? So again, a lot of local touches to it, a lot of local names. They do a great job with naming their beers, but they've also had more experience doing it. And they're distributed. So you can find them definitely here, because I know we have it on tap at our restaurants. We actually have it on tap here. There's seltzer, I believe, right? On Brewing Seltzer. So the team at Beachside, they do that really cool touch to, they'll try something exotic, right? You have their standard beers, like Juicy Fruit, I think is one of theirs. It's like the big hazy IPA, delicious. But they'll always have something crazy on tap, like chocolate covered cherry stout or something. I made that up. If he does, it's probably delicious, but they always have something cool there. Then Ormond's going to have the best selection, right? They're a big facility. You got Persimmon Hollow here, which I think they do some test stuff here outside of. It's funny, they're right across the bridge, and I've only been there a few times. I go to the one in downtown DeLand a lot more. Great vibe. Also right across the street, another cool like Scottish style brewery. It's called Hiderhead, yeah. And it's a Scottish brewery, and you walk in, right? It's very, very obvious, and a lot of that style of brewing. So you see, like, even in this area, while we all try to focus on local stuff, you have a distinctly different approach to how the brewery's set up and how the beer's presented. And it's great because you can go into we got a unique and crazy little one over in Holly Hill called Red Pig, and they have some of the best beers in town. The guy is an extremely talented individual, but he's got that big, I mean, you're drinking a glass of grain, right? It's so, and I like that style. I like that big, heavy, hazy, complex beer. So that just shows his talent, right? You're seeing this, it's a small one. Probably 20 people could fit in there. There's always people in there though. And it's my partner and I, Bobby and Chris, that's where we would meet as we were planning this, right? It's central, it's quiet, it's chill, it's great beer. And we'd bounce around and we'd try to get into all. I mean, if you ask each one of us what's our other favorite brewery, it's probably different every which one of us.
Which is great to see that Volusia has been able to sort of cultivate that in the county.
Oh yeah, I mean we're lucky. We don't have a lot of them, but we got really good ones, and so it's pretty cool.
All right, so that is part one. Next week, we will be back with the rest of our interview with Michael and Sasha. In the meantime, make sure to follow the Florida Beer Podcast on social media, on Instagram, Threads, and X, Twitter, whatever. It is at Florida Beer Blog. On Facebook, we are at FL Beer Blog. We are also on the internet at floridabeerblog.com and floridabeerpodcast.com. And if you want to reach out to us, you can do so quite easily at floridabeerblog@gmail.com. We are also a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network, and you can find information on them at floridapodcastnetwork.com. We are not the only Florida-based podcast they have, obviously, and it really is good for you to check out everything they have, because everything they have is really awesome. If you are not doing so yet, please make sure to like and subscribe to us on the podcasting app of your choice. It does help, especially if you leave us a nice, fun 5-star review, and help spread the word of Florida craft beer. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Field producer is Steve Pekala. Executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network and Grand Hype Hoobah is Jemmy Legagneur. This is David Butler, your host and author. We will be back next week with part 2 from Dunes Brewing in Port Orange, Florida. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening, and drink Florida craft. And so another thing that you sort of mentioned when it came to Dunes Brewing, because you've got so many different breweries, and obviously you take a look at the photos for World's Most Famous, and it's very much a bike week dive bar. We took a look at Red Pig, and we took a look at I think we actually went into Tomoka before it closed. This location has the most different decor vibe setup than almost any of the other breweries that I've ever been to, because it sort of took the coastal but went for it, which I guess this is how beachy is this? Because you could almost say maybe it's a little touch on the New England, or is it very much this is what coastal Port Orange, this is what a person who worked the sea 50 years ago when that photo was taken, hopefully I can get a picture of it for social media. Is this kind of the vibe that you were looking for?
Yeah. So probably a combination of a lot of that, right? I mean, it's my wife designed this place. Her family, her mother's a phenomenal designer, has built a lot of great things in this town. Her brother's a developer, has built some great stuff. That's a very creative family on design and approach, because to us, there's a lot of value to that. You want people to feel comfortable, but yeah, the coastal side of this, there is definitely a feel of the New England, because a lot of white, clean lines. So that definitely invokes that New England feel, which, was the main fishing seaport of America in the beginning. And so, that's transcended down, I think, Florida coastal, which we have a lot of oysters here. We got a lot of great oysters locally you can eat right out of the water. And so you see that here, you see that rustic feel, but we're Dunes Brewing. Like we are literally sitting on top of a historic coastal dune. So that to us is how the name came about. We wanted to emphasize that, and we wanted to emphasize the water and the locality of it. Yeah, a gator is maybe not think of an ocean animal. However, they are in the ocean, and they are very coastal. And prior to probably humans being all over this area, they were all over that river.
I thought they were just freshwater.
Yeah, you'll definitely get an alligator. It's rare, but someone who's grown up surfing, I don't anymore. I've gotten too large to hold a surfboard up. But I was fortunate never to see an alligator, but I saw pretty much every other animal. But friends have seen them out there, and I get scared when I see a manatee in the ocean, because that's very abnormal to me. But because it looks like a sea monster, I couldn't imagine surfing across and seeing a gator. A shark's no problem. You know what to do. An alligator, I'd freak out, right? I mean, but this is here in the area. This was killed right here in this area a long time ago by my wife's father. So my father-in-law, and he's gotten, and a lot of the pieces are family driven, right? So you have the marlin over there is caught by my wife's brother, Jack. And
that's a real marlin?
That was a real marlin. It clearly doesn't look like the paint. Yeah. He also painted it himself too. And it's a great piece, but we have those right offshore, right? So you have beautiful marlin right offshore. We have a sailfish on the other side, also caught by the family. That was not. That thing is just a crazy story behind it. It's
a giant moose antler.
Yeah, Irish elk, which is extinct now. That was found in a bog in Ireland that my father-in-law found in a museum on the west coast of Florida. They allowed, the Smithsonian Institute has the original. They allowed 3 molds to be made for museums across the country. The one in this small little museum in the west coast of Florida had one. They were shutting down. The guy was retiring. It was one of those old Florida antiquity road stop museums, right? Okay. And he offered to buy it, and he had it out at his farm for the last 20 years. And when we were opening the brewery, he's like, "You all should put this up." And I was like, what the heck does that have to do with coastal or dunes? And I was like, whatever. And my wife was adamant that it would look awesome in here. And you know what? That's probably the most talked about thing, because it's so crazy looking, right? It really does like grab a hold of you. And while it may not have coastal, it was found in a bog. And it's just a cool piece, right? It's so different, but it fits, right? It's weird, but it fits. It doesn't feel out of place, which I thought it would be. I thought this has nothing to do with the ocean or coast. But to her credit, it complements it quite well.
I will say there's a special sort of craziness that the beachside areas tend to have. It's always
absolutely.
little
When you got crab and grouper and old signs from the area, it's maps of the area, local artists. There's a lot of local artists here. Some are painted right on the walls. Some are painted on our bar. Those are almost everything you see in here from an art standpoint was either made or created in Florida. And so that's pretty cool. There's very, very few things that aren't.
Awesome. So let's talk about the beer a little bit, because I know when you first opened, you had 6 of your beers on tap. Have you been able to increase that over the past few years?
Yeah, I never know. I took a picture when we got here because I don't know exactly what's going to be on tap at any given point. We try to have certain ones, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different beers on tap right now that are made here. We feature other things like cider and seltzer from other breweries, but we won't feature another beer. The only one we have beer is a non-alcoholic. We don't make a non-alcoholic, but we found the Mango Cart NA is a phenomenal. It's a great beer.
I realized the Golden Road made it.
Oh yeah, I didn't either until I saw one. I was like, "Why are we selling Mango Cart here?" And they're like, "It's non-alcoholic." And I was like, "Oh wow!" So I tried one, and it's fantastic, right? Huh. So it's great that you can have a quality beer if you're drinking non-alcoholics. Otherwise, not that Beck's and the O'Douls are not, but they're mass run. So it's more of a craft, which fits our style, right? Craft brewery, craft non-alcoholic. But those 10 beers we have on are not the 10 beers we opened with. I'd argue probably only 2 of those are on there or ones we opened the brewery with. We try to always have our blonde on. Yeah, it's a classic. So, I don't know what to get. Try the blonde, right? We know you're going to be happy because it's the most easy to drink, most appealing, non-offensive beer we have. And then we always have an IPA. Sasha mentioned earlier, we always have our IPA on tap. So those 2 we prefer, partner-wise, always have the black lager, Schwartz beer on. It's our favorite beer. It's just absolutely great. Not a lot of people make it, but the ones that do a great job. Jeremy does a phenomenal job at it. And and to me, it's that next beer, right? You have a blonde. I don't drink dark beer. I don't want a dark beer. Well, try this. Yeah. And when people try it, it's because it's so clean, so smooth, but it has that caramelization, that little bit of roasted flavor that you just don't get in a lighter style beer. Yeah. By virtue of the grain just doesn't allow it to come out, but in that beer it does, and I think it's a great kind of entryway to other bigger beers. Because it shows you that dark beer is not scary, right? It's a smooth, easy drinking. Excuse me. I love that beer. I think it doesn't ever taste like a dark beer, but it's got the body and character to it that does.
I was going to ask, of those beers, which are the ones that you and your 2 partners mandate always be on tap? Is it the blonde?
It's the black lager. It's a black lager, and we don't get it. To Jeremy's credit, as much as we hound him over, if there's any beer we probably pressure him and Chase, who's our cellarman, over making, it's definitely the black lager. And anybody in here absolutely will tell you, we always say that's got to be on tap. And when it's not, we're like little children. We complain and complain. And sometimes he's like, we're just not going to make it right now. I've got other beers in there. We got other beers we got to make. And I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of pressure he feels from us on that. But we respect that he won't do it because he doesn't feel right to make it then. Okay. And so I want him to have the right product, to the right grains, the right yeast, the right what he can get, and to be able to make it right. I don't want him to be forced to make something he's not proud of. And so if he doesn't feel like he can get the right product to make it correctly, well, then I have to grow up and realize it's just not going to be ready today. And so we do have it on tap now. And I love it. It's phenomenal. You're going to try it here in a little bit because that's a beer you have to try here.
Okay, perfect. What about your customers? Which are the ones that they come back and say, well, why don't you have this one on tap? That one.
So I'll let Sasha talk here in a second because Sasha does a phenomenal job representing the brand, and she probably knows more about our customers than I do. But if we don't have IPA, you're going to hear that, right? That's kind of a deal breaker for most people. If you walk in, and I agree with that. If you walk in, there's not an IPA on tap, because that has become the micro craft brewers differentiating point, right? If you have an IPA in a brewery that's made right on site, it's going to blow anything away in a can or a bottle. Just going to do it. I don't care how great that IPA is. That can be made. There's argument for some phenomenal IPAs, and they are. But in a can and a bottle, I put up any local brewery's IPA up against that because it's just going to be better. And so if you don't have that on tap and you came into a craft brewery and it's not, I agree, you should be upset, right? And we fail sometimes and don't have it on there. And that we all know it's a big problem. We all know, oh, crap, we don't have IPA for the next few weeks. We're going to hear it, and we hear it pretty quickly on the review sites, Facebook, Instagram, Yelp, and fairly enough, right? That's shame on us, but stuff happens. It's a manufacturing facility. We can make a whole batch and not be happy with it. Sure, we could probably sell and make money, but we dump it, right? It just doesn't work. And because at the end of the day, that's all you got. You got your name, and Sasha is responsible for protecting that to all ends, right? So Sasha, I'm gonna let her talk in a minute here because I've talked quite a bit, and you can probably tell my voice has changed a little bit. But she protects the brand. And so Sasha, what do you think our customers want?
So when someone has their tried and true go-to beers, that can range for anything from dark to light. But when we have a new beer that's just hitting the tap, a new beer release, there is something about wanting to try that exclusive, brand new to the brewery beer. And we have such pride in the beers that Jeremy makes. Almost every beer release is accompanied by a beer release party. And we have made such a reputation for ourselves as Dunes Brewing to kind of be known for our beer release parties. And when I first started, funny story, it was about 6 months into working for Michael at the advertising agency. It was coming for our annual beer release of the Mexican lager Brochacho. So Michael came to me.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the can up there. It's interesting to see a party for a Mexican lager.
Yep.
The parties tend to be reserved for the big barrel aged. Here's our bomber. Here's this massive thing, or maybe even something seasonal like Oktoberfest, like our Oktoberfest. But a Mexican lager?
Yeah. So, and by the way, that beer is one of my favorites. Love the taste. But as you can see from the crowler right there that we designed, the logo is a Lucha Libre traditional Mexican wrestler to go along with the Mexican lager. And every year we host a beer release party in honor of Brochacho coming back. We do that on or around Cinco de Mayo. And Michael came to me and said, this year I want to do something big and I want to have live Lucha Libre wrestling in the parking lot.
Yes.
And at first I was like, you're joking, right? You can't quite possibly be serious. And he was dead serious. And that's one thing I love about Michael is he's got such a big vision and knows and puts a lot of trust in myself and our team. He knows we can make it happen. I didn't have that trust in myself. At first, I was like, I'm surely getting fired if I don't get these wrestlers. But, Michael believed in me, and somehow I was able to find a Lucha Libre wrestling group, and we had them for our Brochacho beer release party. And it was probably one of the best events that we've had here. It was crazy. I mean, we had people lined up on the bridge watching. We had a full wrestling ring in the parking lot. I think there was 10 matches. I mean, it was done so great by the wrestling group that came and did it. It's definitely going to be a repeat event. But like I said, having such pride in the beers that are new to the lineup, we try to do these beer release parties to go alongside it. We just got done with our Oktoberfest beer release party to celebrate the Oktoberfest and Fest beer.
You had an Oompa band in here, right?
Yep. We had a polka band set up, and it's not just, oh, hey, we're throwing a party tonight, come try the new beer. No, we take great pride in our event planning and really throwing a great party. To your point earlier about the community, we throw these parties throughout the year. They're always free. They're always family friendly. They're always fun. And we just kind of go, in my opinion, we go above and beyond as a brewery to really make this a special experience for our guests and our customers, and to really kind of gather everyone together to not only try the beer, but to have a fun time at our brewery.
And that's actually a good question or a good idea, because one of my questions is in terms of a social media presence and that sort of image that you want to portray. You could go beach coastal, but we're surrounded by businesses and everybody's trying to do beach coastal. How do you differentiate your message and your brand from not only just the regular businesses that are around, but also the breweries that are around that you're sort of working with? So it seems like that seems to be more what you focus on.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely know at the end of the day that we want to promote the brewery and promote the events coming up. But I think what sets us apart is kind of knowing a little bit about our market and a little bit about our customer base and what they like, and trial and error over the years of what do they enjoy on a daily basis? What do they enjoy for a big event, etc.
Do you have to focus on other other seasons that come in? Because obviously next week is going to be Biketoberfest. I would assume that you get, while not the full concentration of that, at least some spillover from that event.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we keep in mind throughout the year. We kind of look ahead and see what's coming up. Obviously, in December, for instance, it's very focused around the holidays. We don't have a holiday beer coming out per se, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to do something to kind of get the community together. We have a monthly market that we host at the brewery on the first Sunday of every month, where we invite local vendors that have anything from arts to baked goods to treats, food, art, etc. And for December, we're doing a 3-day holiday market. So those are very trendy, and people love being able to shop small, support local businesses. And it's a great way that they can come to the brewery, grab a beer, go outside and inside, shop some of their favorite local artists, and just have another event that they can enjoy with their family.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me add to that, because like Sasha mentioned, I challenged her with doing bigger things and better things all the time, like the Mexican wrestling, which was unbelievable. I told her I want to have a tree farm here and sell Christmas trees, because no one on beachside, and I mean no one, up and down the entire 26 coastal miles of Daytona Beach, you can't buy a Christmas tree on beachside. And so I challenged her that I want someone here selling Christmas trees for those that want to have a tree in their home, not have to go across the bridge. And as someone who lives on the beachside, and Sasha also lives on the beachside, it is the closest place is typically the highway. So not that it's far, but I think you should be, as a resident, be able to do those things on beachside. And so I'm very excited. She did find someone, which I thought we wouldn't find. We did find someone that is going to come and sell Christmas trees here on the beachside at the brewery, which now becomes a little more, to your point earlier about community and being a part of the community. To us, I mean, we're not going to make any money on that, nor do we want to make money on that. What we want to do is, as a resident, we know you want that. We hope, we think we do. I know a lot of people that live on the beach that would love to not have to go across the bridge to buy a tree. And then there's a lot of elderly that live on the beach side, especially snowbirds that come down. They definitely don't want to go. And we're going to hopefully be able to find a way to deliver those trees to them so they don't have to worry about getting them to their house. But I want them to know that this is more than just a brewery. You don't have to come here and drink beer. You don't have to come drink anything. But if we have a live event, you don't want to come and spend money, that's fine. Obviously, it helps support us and support what we're doing. But and we did have a lot of people come to the wrestling with their kids. They weren't buying beer. That's fine with us. Come have fun. We're still a community resource, and we take that very seriously. I'm a resident. I was born in the area. I was born in this county. Grew up in this county. I want certain things to happen, and I want to be a good steward of a business. And sometimes you got to look beyond profits and business. While obviously you got to keep the doors open, but I want to make sure that we have things that are bigger, better, and entertaining and valuable. And so when time comes and people say, "Oh, it's a brewery," but they do this and this and this for this community. We do fundraisers here all the time. We donate our space a lot of times to people to be able to use it. Oh, yeah, there's either one. Yeah, either one. And we've become surprisingly, maybe it's not surprising, it's beautiful in here, but the place to have a baby shower. So how about that? Yeah, how about that? How about that? When we
celebrate
built this,
somebody who definitely cannot drink.
Yeah, the person you're celebrating cannot have beer, nor should they. But I'll tell you, when we were building this, we never thought that, you know what, we're going to be the place to go for baby showers. But guess what? The lady that's having the child loves it in here. She feels comfortable in here. We also don't charge for that. It's also before we open typically. And yeah, I mean, we do a minimum. That's all you got to do. So typically people want to celebrate, and usually those are big mimosa bars and stuff like that. But they can bring food in. We don't sell food here, which we hopefully will one day. We're hoping to build a restaurant in the office space there. But you know what? It's really cool when you walk in and there's a baby shower here. Like, I love it. It's like I walk in at like 10 in the morning, come and drop something off or pick something up or check on something in the back. And there's a huge party going on, like 100 people in here at 10 in the morning. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is so great. And maybe 10% of them are having a beer or a mimosa. And that's not really the point. The point is there's a lot of happiness. And we think one day they'll come back because they liked it in here and say, I've never been here before. So if that brings you in here to experience what we have here to offer, and you're like, I could bring my family back here. I could have a good day. I mean, we bring our kids here. The argument is, or you teach them that this is good or bad. I think it's good to be a part of your family. Like, do stuff with your family. We're not coming here and doing shots and doing beer bongs and so that. We'll have a beer or two, and then we'll go have dinner, or we'll go do this. Or the kids will go get ice cream at the dairy bar that I talked about. It's a fun family. They ask to come here. Some of their friends will come and meet them here, and they'll run around. And we got that retention pond out there that I can't tell you how many times. Excuse me. Our youngest has come in sopping wet because he decided to go swimming in a retention pond, and he still hasn't learned his lesson. Probably won't, because I don't think there's a lesson to be learned. It's fun, and he's having a great time, and that goes for a lot of kids. I know Sasha's two boys. I see them here, and they're running around having a great time, and her husband Ken and her can sit down and have a beer, and they're running around having a great time. Nice. And everything in it is. We try to build it for the family. Like, and that's silly to sometimes maybe say a brewery is built for a family, but it is a place where you can stop in and have a beer or two and have a good time. And that could be 3 hours, right? So, because you grab a board game or play that, or you get into a pinball contest, or you're watching a game on, the TV, or we have a musician in here playing music, or like you mentioned, the polka band earlier. Yeah. And that's a totally different customer, by the way. When you come in, I love it. I come in here and we have our polka band playing for Oktoberfest, and there's customers I've never seen before. And it's typically an older set. And so it's interesting. Early in the day when they start, like 5 o'clock, it's a 70 plus group. By the time they finish, it's a 25 to 30 plus, 30-ish age range.
Interesting.
Maybe 40s. And it's just completely changed because they come early, have a good time, have a few beers, they leave, and then it's a crazy multiple generations, because that music is different to each person. Some of that is very feeling of home, or a feeling they grew up in that, and others are never seen someone play the squeeze box and go at it and some classic German songs, and it's pretty great. I mean, I always get a kick out of it, and we see kids dancing to it, right? What does an 8-year-old know about polka? Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
But you know what? It's a good beat, and they're having a great time.
You did sort of mention in the future building a kitchen, building a restaurant here, and I kind of dovetails to the last question that I want to talk about to go a little bit darker, is that you do own Jimmy Hula's next door, but it is way too difficult for you to serve Dunes Brewing beer at Jimmy Hula's, even though it's next door. Yeah, we share a parking lot, and by law, we can't have it over there unless we were distributed, and we're an on-premise beer. I mean, yeah, you can get a crowler and take it with you, but the reality is, if you want Dunes beer, and we were very, very specific about it. Obviously, there's the 3-tier system of owning a restaurant and owning a brewery. You got to be careful about how you do certain things. There's other laws you have to follow, but we were out from the very beginning. We'd never wanted to make a brewery that would be distributed, because, and then I think there's some fantastic beers that are, but we wanted you to experience what we felt was the right
experience with our beer. And that is why you see the brewery you see. So it's an expression of getting to know Jeremy and his wife Cheryl and what they care about and what beers he wants to make. There's a little, it's not out yet, and I'm not sure if we're going to make it again. We tested it. It was fantastic. You see the middle can there with the little shells on it?
Yes.
So to me, those are periwinkles, depending on how you grew up. Some people call them coquina shells. Technically, I think they're coquinas, which are little sea snails. In this area, they used to be, you could make a stew out of those. And my grandmother told me it was delicious. I've never had that, but I have had, we made a beer out of those.
Ooh.
And to test to see, is that something we can go and get locally on our shore and make something out of it? It was fantastic. So it's like an oyster stout, right?
Okay.
You've got a mollusk. You get a lot of flavor out of that. It has a brininess to it. And so that's kind of an illusion of what's coming, hopefully. But we have some things we have to make sure we do legally correct, harvest those properly, and make sure if we can. But I'll tell you, that is something we want to do here. And the question was not about that, obviously. I jumped around. But yeah, it's troublesome to own a restaurant right next door and not be able to sell your beer at it.
Well, I was going to say, was there any legal way for you to connect the two buildings by like a walkway or a patio or something to have it be one facility and make it Jimmy Hula's bar or brewery and grill, or make it the Dunes? There probably
is a way. You're probably I know there's a lot of, some states have already done this where breweries are allowed to self-distribute if they're a certain amount or less. That is kind of in Florida's works right now. Probably maybe 10 years we may see that. That would obviously open that up way easier. We obviously are in support of that. But we do know that distribution has a huge value too, right? There's protective laws in there from a safety standpoint. So we're not either way. If it happens, we'd love it. We definitely support the brewers that want to do it. We believe it's the right thing from a standpoint of the volume that you're doing. And in this case, it makes sense, right? You own a restaurant, you can't sell your beer at. So, but we do have some great beer over there, and we do try to get a lot of the local craft beer in there. But that's part of the reason we want to build a restaurant here. And it's funny, it's like, well, are we going to compete with ourselves? Maybe. But I can tell you one thing that's pretty crazy. When we have a taco food truck, we sell tacos next door. When we have a taco food truck in our event, we have some of our best days next door. So it would go to contrary to normal belief. But what it does is it builds more business. And so we also, since we opened the brewery, Jimmy Hula's was first, we sell 20% more beer since after the brewery opened. So we have literally a direct potential competitor. But what it does is it's all tides rise, all ships. That's
amazing.
And that's not me saying, those are numbers. Like the numbers prove we sell now more beer there, and we love it. And I would argue that probably Deck Down Under does too. They do a great job. They have a lot of great beers on tap. They have some local ones as well. And I bet they sell more beer because the brewery opened, because we bring more people here. It becomes more of a destination, becomes more of an entertainment area that you can go get a pitcher of cold beer and some boiled shrimp on the river, watch dolphins swim. You can go over and grab some seafood at the seafood market at Two Jerks for later that night. You can walk into Jimmy Hula's, listen to some live music and grab a cocktail and maybe some chips and dip. And then you could finish with a beer here or ice cream at Dairy Bar.
Yeah.
And so in one day, you've done really distinctly different things.
Yeah.
But all in the same place. You park your car once and you walk to everything. And that's why I believe the city of Port Orange has been such a huge fan of not only us, but everybody down here and supporting what we do. And it's really great to see a city behind that, like, hey, we want to make it a better experience for everybody, because they know we're all responsible owners, that we're not pushing this party crazy scene. We're pushing having a good family time. And when you go out with your family and you can literally do all those things in one little area, that's why the Down Under district has become a very popular, and we're really proud to be a part of it. We'd argue we've had a little bit to do with that, I think, because we added 2 businesses here. But it was already going well before we got here. I give a lot of credit to what Deck Down Under's done here. They've created this environment for other people to be extremely successful. And even across the street, Brendan at Catfish's, I mean, it's the best. Like, it's such a cool place. And he's opened, and he has another restaurant called the Casual Bird, literally a stone's throw from us.
Yeah, I remember passing that on the
Yeah, it's great coffee, great breakfast. And it's become more and more popular. I mean, I drive by there every morning coming into work, and he's always packed. And when the visitor's here, it's crazy, right? I know when I can get in there and when I can't. So you gotta time it right. But it's a phenomenal place. And this whole area, we also have Genovese's right across the street. Fantastic pizza. I mean, I like clam pizza. You don't get that often on play, but they make a killer clam pizza.
Interesting.
It's unbelievable. It's so dang good. It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you can bring that in here, and we have plenty of times. You can order the pizza, grab it, or they'll deliver it to you across the street.
That's awesome. Let's get some fest beer, shall we?